Joining me now is Congressman Rick Crawford. He represents the 1st Congressional District of Arkansas. Always good to visit with him. Congressman Crawford, thank you for being here. And let's begin with, you got a broken leg. You were playing football. You're getting a little too old to be playing football there. Are you out for the season, or does this mean that you're going into retirement now?
Oh, I didn't think you were going to mention that. Well, I don't want to tell you how old I am. I'm on injured reserve. Well, I'll tell you what. I did give my cleats to my son, so I think that's probably the end of my football career. You know, and it was really I was going great. Now, I hate to leave in the middle of my career like that, but.
Well, you've ruined my fantasy football team for the season, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Let's turn to some serious issues here. This week, the House of Representatives opened an impeachment inquiry on President Donald Trump. A lot of this centers around a released call summary and a whistleblower complaint. In the call summary the president released, it says, "I'd like for you to do us a favor," when he's talking to the Ukrainian president. He references Attorney General Bill Barr, Rudy Giuliani, looking into Joe Biden and Joe Biden's son Hunter. Is the president's admitted actions here in this call summary, is that an abuse of power in your mind, and do you think it's an impeachable offense?
I absolutely don't think it's an impeachable offense. I think that you have to take in the broadest context here. First off, I think you have to recognize, too, that the president voluntarily released the transcript of the conversation. So I think on the front end, you have to acknowledge, if he had anything to hide, why would he have released the transcript? That's number one. Number two, what drove this was the claim from an alleged whistleblower that, we can get into a lot of detail on that too, if you like. The chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, on which I sit, received that complaint on August 12th. Now, the date of this taping is, what are we, September the 25th, 26th? Why'd you sit on it that long? What was the reason for not acting swiftly? And then you heard in the hearing yesterday that Chairman Schiff chastised Director McGuire for not moving swiftly. And so I think there's some conflicts there. That's also a problem. But then if you've read the complaint, and I have, first you just look at the complaint. Apparently it was prepared by an attorney. And if you look at the substance of the complaint, it doesn't match the conversation. The claims that are made don't match the substance of the conversation in question, number one. Number two, even the complainant, he or she, acknowledges that they were not a party to the conversation. So they are acknowledging on the front end that they are a second party at best, and in fact maybe even a third party. And then throughout the presentation there are footnotes. You really need to read the footnotes, because the complainant goes even further in acknowledging their lack of standing with regard to being a first party account. So if you read this complaint, you can see that there are all kinds of problems with this, and I think this unequivocally does not meet any threshold even close to an impeachable offense. Now, I mean, we can talk about whether or not you think that was the appropriate thing for the president to do on that conversation. I'm not going to defend any of that, because it's not my position to defend it. I'm asked, is this an impeachable offense? And the answer is unequivocally no.
The whistleblower complaint that you referenced there, it does appear corroborated and documented. I understand the point that you're making, that there's some concerns about some consistency through it, but it does seem to tie together that there are some people who are witnesses to this and that there may be some documentation to this. Does the whistleblower complaint raise concerns for you about the actions of the president or the White House?
The whistleblower complaint raises concerns. My perspective is that it's being abused. The Whistleblower Act is there to protect whistleblowers from reprisal in the workplace when they bring a legitimate complaint to the fore. So Director McGuire said in the hearing yesterday that this was a credible complaint. It was credible insofar as it followed procedure. When you look at the substance of the complaint, however, it's not credible because it doesn't match the claims being made. The transcript does not match those claims. So therefore, first off, this would not be admissible in court because he acknowledges multiple times, or she, we don't know, acknowledges multiple times that they are not a party to the conversation, that this is secondhand at best, maybe even third-hand. And so read the thing in context and then read the footnotes. And also, why is this prepared in this format? Why is this prepared like a legal document? Because probably it was prepared by an attorney or a law firm. That's why. And that brings up even more questions about what's the motivation here. If the motivation was to bring to light wrongdoing, do you really need to go out and get an attorney to prepare a document so that you can send this letter to both the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee and the House Intelligence Committee? And the House chairman, Schiff, sat on it for almost longer than a month. He had that letter was addressed August 12th. And so I'm wondering, where was the outrage on August 12th? Look at the timeline on this and follow along where D&I Coates was stepping down and there was going to be a transition period. The heir apparent was Sue Gordon, who did not get the job, and she retired from service. And then Joe McGuire, who was then the director of National Counterterrorism Center, was tapped to be the acting director of national intelligence. And then we start to see the complaint come through the channel. So all this is suspect in my mind. I'm not challenging the validity of the complaint in as far as they followed the proper protocol, but then when you actually look at the complaint, then you have to question how this came about, the nature of the complaint, the format the complaint is presented in, and the substance of the complaint being second and third party claims that the individual had no access to first party account.
So if the vote were today, you would not vote to impeach the president, but is it possible that evidence could present itself in this impeachment inquiry that would change your mind in that respect?
Well, I guess anything's possible, but I'm thinking back about 2 years ago when you and I had a conversation similar to this. That's how long we've been talking about impeachment. Impeachment conversation has been taking place since the evening of the election in 2016. That's when the impeachment conversation started. So they've been looking at filing articles of impeachment with several blanks to fill in. Let's go fill in the blanks. This is ridiculous. It's at some point in time, the American people expect us to go up there and govern, not, engage in a food fight. You don't like the president? I get it, okay? Live with it, and then when 2020 rolls around, mobilize your base, and then you can act accordingly, and you'll have an opportunity to weigh in on the disposition of this president. But to take this kind of action and to spend, the amount of time that they're spending on impeachment is just a gross misuse of resources, and I think it's a real displacement of trust that the American people are supposed to have in the folks that are supposed to govern. Because we're not able to govern in this environment, and we're not able to do the things that are important, like dealing with infrastructure and dealing with border security and a variety of other topics that are being pushed to the margins so we can focus on these these ridiculous impeachment chases.
You are on the House Intelligence Committee. It looks like that's where a lot of this action is going to be centered, so I look forward to some future conversations with you on that. Let's shift gears and talk about U.S.-Chinese relations. The Chinese General Counsel was in Arkansas this past week, talking up Arkansas and its hospitality and its business friendliness. Maybe not so much on the national, international scene, but you have 3 Chinese projects in your congressional district, Helena, Jonesboro, and Forest City. Do you have any concerns that any of those projects may go off the rails? I absolutely do. I have concerns about Chinese investing in the United States for a variety of reasons. Obviously, there's national security reasons. I think we have to understand, and I was approached by actually Sue Gordon, who I mentioned before, unsolicited brief that she gave me on business intelligence and supply chain integrity, and at the fore is the Chinese threat, not only in the business world where they attempt to steal everything they can, intellectual property, forced technology transfers. We had 5 researchers indicted in the state of Arkansas just over a year ago for stealing rice research from the Rice Research and Extension Center.
this doesn't just happen in Arkansas. It happens all over the country. In fact, MD Anderson was taken advantage of by some Chinese researchers in that institution. So we have issues about the forthrightness of Chinese investment. Exactly why are they here? Number one. Number two, if they're able to make these kind of investments in states like Arkansas and other parts of the United States, why are they given preferential treatment as a developing economy in the WTO, which is having a negative impact on our economy? Example, look at steel dumping. Look at the tariffs that were implemented as a result of the steel dumping. This has to do in great part to their manipulation of the WTO rules, or actually just flouting the WTO rules, because they're not held to account. They continue to be treated as a developing nation. I can tell you, if you're investing billions of dollars outside of your own country, you have arrived. You don't need special treatment. They should be on the same footing as the United States, as the EU, and other countries that are not developing but are in fact developed economies, and so they shouldn't be given special treatment. So the question is, why are they here in Arkansas? I think there's a strategic concern there. There's obviously the academic institutions, as the Confucius Institute has become a major source for embedding researchers into academic institutions, students into academic institutions, whereby those individuals can steal technology and apply that in their own production back home in China. They're not honest brokers. They're not here to help us. I have concerns about it. I'm not trying to be a naysayer. I'm not trying to throw cold water on economic development. In fact, I'm all in for economic development. I think we ought to be looking at ways so we can grow our own and capitalize on our own ability here to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. You mentioned the issue in Forest City. I think it's important that we do invest in our ability to create value in the supply chain, particularly with regard to cotton, because I have questions about whether or not we're going to sustain cotton production in the United States if we don't have a vertical integration model that allows for us to participate in the global marketplace with regard to textiles. We lost our textile industry some years back as a result of the WTO, as a ruling of the WTO. So as the American cotton industry is struggling with how are we going to sustain production here, the answer is not to bring in Chinese investment and give over everything we have in the hopes that the Chinese are going to be fair and deal in good faith with us, because the answer to that is no, they're not. They're not here to help us.
Let me move us on to our last question here, as we've got a little bit of a time constraint. You mentioned the tariffs earlier. Farmers have been receiving payments through the market facilitation program for their crop losses for about 2 years now. I think the total we've seen from the government on this is about $28 billion. Will you support a year 3 of that market facilitation program if necessary? And what's the ultimate end game there? Do we do this in perpetuity? When do we say the market's gone and the farmers don't get that safety net anymore?
Well, the market's never going to be gone, because China is basically demand inelastic. They have to have a certain amount of, for example, soybeans, other agricultural commodities. So the market is always going to be there. The question is, how do we access it? I'm encouraged by the fact that Japan and the United States just signed a trade deal. That is the first foray into really establishing a distributor network in the Pacific Rim that will tee up greater sales into the Pacific Rim region. Whether we access that market on a wholesale level, that is directly through direct sales to China, or whether they become a retail market, that market will still be there and it will still be significant. The issue is going to be, how do we access it? So we've already taken a real positive step in that regard with the trade deal with Japan. I think the next one has to be Vietnam. We have to go to Malaysia, Singapore, India. We had a good exchange with India earlier on this month. And that Pacific Rim is something that we need to do. So TPP could have been the answer. However, Japan was not willing to step up and make the kind of deal that they wanted. I favor bilateral deals as opposed to multilateral deals for a variety of reasons, but primarily because it's easier for us to engage in those deals and enforce the terms of the deal between 2 players as opposed to 13. But we're on good footing now because we do have Japan signing the deal. I think that it's going to be fairly easy now to go into countries like Vietnam, Malaysia, Singapore, India, and others, and really set up a Pacific Rim distributorship to allow us to access the Chinese market, even if it's only on a retail basis. I would take that over tariffs. In the long term, to answer your question, are we going to be able to do this indefinitely? The answer is probably no. As long as we're denying our farmers market access, however, we have to do something to offset that.
All right, he is Representative Rick Crawford. He represents the 1st Congressional District of Arkansas. Always good to spend time with you. Thank you for your insights and your thoughts.
Thank you.